Have you ever accepted something small, something harmless, and later realized it changed everything? Maybe it was a gift, maybe just a favor, or a strange coincidence you brushed off. They say the most dangerous curses don't come with screams or thunder. They come wrapped in kindness. Elizabeth never believed in fate, not until a quiet old woman handed her daughter a mirror. "Keep it," she whispered. "Use it wisely, but never let greed guide your reflection." It felt like a blessing, a second chance, a glimpse of someone they thought they'd lost. But magic is never free. And mirrors? Mirrors don't just reflect your face, they reflect your soul. And when the soul is cracked, the world follows. This is the story of a gift choice, and the night grief turned into a curse. If you think it couldn't happen to you, think again. Have you ever taken something small for granted? Something harmless, something kind that you didn't ask for, but accepted anyway? That's how it always begins. Not with thunder, not with blood, but with a simple gift. Elizabeth's daughter was handed a mirror by an old woman with eyes like forgotten time. "Use it wisely," she said. "It can help you, but misuse it and it will undo you." The mirror gave them what they needed. It showed them the impossible. But what begins in love can end in greed, because mirrors don't just reflect faces. They reflect what you hide from the world. This is not just a story, it's a warning. The most dangerous curse is the one you choose. And it always starts just like this story. This happens to more people than you think. So talk about it. Most don't. They hide it, bury it, pretend it never happened. But the consequences always find a way to surface. Let me tell you a story of a woman and her daughter. Two ordinary souls who were offered a gift and misused it. And from that moment, the curse began. It started with death. Elizabeth had been a happy wife once, a school teacher in a small town outside Seattle. Her husband, Thomas, was a mechanic, steady, quiet, and dependable. They didn't have much, but they had each other. And their daughter, Sarah, was their entire world. But life does not care for perfect pictures. One winter morning, black ice and a drunk driver shattered Elizabeth's world. The police found Thomas's car wrapped around a pine tree, smoke rising like breath from a dying giant. In a single day, her home, her income, her foundation, everything crumbled. There was no life insurance, no savings, just debts and a 9-year-old daughter who had stopped speaking. With no other options, Elizabeth packed their belongings into a rusted red Buick and drove to the only place they had left, her late grandfather's cottage in the mountains of Pine Hollow. A crumbling wooden house tucked deep in the forest, the kind of place where silence seemed to breathe down your neck. The first night there, Elizabeth sat on a creaky porch, watching fog snake through the trees. Sarah lay inside, silent, drawing shapes in dust on the floorboards. Elizabeth cried quietly, knowing her daughter couldn't sleep in their old home without nightmares, knowing she couldn't keep pretending they were okay. She whispered to the night, "I need a miracle," and the night listened. It was supposed to be a normal day. Elizabeth had driven into town for a job interview, something at a diner, just a few shifts away, anything to keep the lights on. Sarah was with her, quietly holding her sketch pad as they bumped along the winding forest road. The trees were so thick on either side that it felt like driving through a tunnel. Halfway down the road, the Buick's engine gave a sputtering cough and died. Elizabeth cursed under her breath and pulled to the shoulder, gravel crunching beneath bald tires. She tried the key again. Nothing. The engine was as dead as her savings account. She slammed her fist on the steering wheel. Great. Just great. Sarah looked up, her eyes wide and hollow. "Mom, there's someone coming." Elizabeth turned. An old woman stood on the side of the road. Bent with age, she leaned on a carved cane made of gnarlwood. Her clothes were mismatched, layers of gray shawls and a red scarf that fluttered even though there was no wind. But what struck Elizabeth most was her face, kind, weathered, and knowing. "Need help?" the woman asked. Elizabeth hesitated. "Oh yeah, car died. No signal either." The old woman stepped closer. Machines are fickle things, but life has a way of fixing what's meant to move. Elizabeth blinked. "Do you live around here?" I live where I'm needed." She smiled, and it was the kind of smile that both comforted and unsettled. Then, from beneath her shawl, the old woman pulled out a small mirror. Its frame was brass, shaped like vines curling around a circle of flawless glass. It gleamed as if lit from within. Elizabeth couldn't help but stare into it. "It's a gift," the woman said, extending it to her. "It will help you, but don't misuse it, or it will take more than it gives." Elizabeth hesitated. "I can't accept. You already have." The woman placed the mirror in Sarah's lap. Then she turned and began walking away, vanishing into the mist with impossible speed. Elizabeth sat frozen, unsure what had just happened. The car engine suddenly coughed to life, unprompted. Sarah whispered, "We can go now," and they did. But something had changed. Back at the cottage, Elizabeth placed the mirror on the mantel, trying to forget the eerie encounter. But she couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching her. The way the glass reflected light, even when there was none, was unnatural. That night, Elizabeth dreamed of Thomas. He stood in their old kitchen, smiling. He said, "Look in the bank, Liz. I left something for you." She woke up shaking, tears staining her cheeks. "Sarah," she whispered. "Sarah, I saw your dad." Sarah nodded solemnly. "He said the same thing to me." Elizabeth's hands trembled as she picked up the mirror. "This thing, is it showing us something?" She didn't want to believe it. But desperation has a way of making the unbelievable feel possible. The next morning, she drove to the bank Thomas used to talk about. She hadn't been there in years. The teller raised an eyebrow as she checked the records. "There's a savings account here. Opened 8 years ago. $10,000. You're listed as the beneficiary." Elizabeth staggered back. It was true. The mirror had shown her something real. That night, as they sat by the fireplace, she stared at the mirror and whispered, "What else can you show me?" Sarah reached out and touched the glass. For a moment, Elizabeth thought she saw another world in reflection. One with no bills, no pain, no hunger. She leaned in closer. Maybe this can fix everything. And in the mirror, something shimmered. Something ancient. Waiting. The gift had been given, but the price had not yet been paid. The first week passed quietly, though neither Elizabeth nor Sarah could ignore the peculiar presence of the mirror. It sat on the dresser in the corner of the room. Old, worn, yet somehow regal. The morning light caught its surface and made it glimmer with an almost breath-like shimmer. At first, they used it like any ordinary mirror. Sarah admired her hair in it before school, and Elizabeth adjusted her worn-out blouse before rushing to her shift at the diner. But on the 7th day, something changed. Sarah, brushing her hair in the mirror's reflection, paused when she thought she saw someone behind her. She turned sharply. No one. Her breath hitched. "Mom," she called out. In the kitchen, Elizabeth replied casually. Sarah looked back at the mirror, heart racing. The reflection was normal again, yet a strange feeling lingered, as if the mirror was aware. That night, Elizabeth sat alone in her room. Bills, unpaid, lay scattered on the bed. The anxiety, the suffocating pressure of their life grew heavier by the day. She turned to the mirror, just for a moment, to glimpse her tired face. But this time the glass rippled. What the hell? In the reflection, she didn't see her room. She saw a hallway, dim, ancient, candlelit. Then it was gone. She blinked. Her own reflection stared back. And then came the whisper, low, slow, breathy. "Ask." Elizabeth stumbled back, heart slamming in her chest. The mirror didn't move again. The next morning, Elizabeth told no one. But the seed had been planted. Over the next few days, the mirror became a magnet in the house. Elizabeth started watching it more, not out of vanity, but out of curiosity and growing compulsion. Each evening, when she was alone, it would shimmer again. Each time, she would see more. Visions, fleeting, a memory here, a stranger's bedroom, a funeral procession, and whispers. Ask. It wasn't just showing her random things. It was offering. It was promising. One night, she finally broke. She stood before it, trembling. "I want to know if my husband really killed himself." The mirror didn't hesitate. It rippled like water. In seconds, it showed her a grainy, ghostly vision. Her husband, pale, drinking alone, a gun shaking in his hand. But just before the fatal moment, another figure entered. Hooded, silent, the gun was forced into his hand. The scene vanished. Elizabeth gasped, tears brimming. He didn't want to die. The mirror pulsed with an eerie glow. Almost satisfied, the next morning, she sat Sarah down and told her everything. The mirror, the visions, the truth about her father's death. Sarah didn't argue. She had seen things too. I heard it say something, she whispered. I thought I was dreaming. They sat in silence. Their reality had shifted. The mirror wasn't just magical, it was intelligent. And they had only begun to scratch the surface. A week later, Elizabeth returned home from work with her hand shaking. She had taken a risk, whispering a request into the mirror that morning. Is there any money? Anything left that could help us? The mirror answered. In the vision, she saw her late husband at a bank, opening a small account under a false name. A secret, a precaution. Elizabeth tracked it down. Her heart thundered when the teller, after checking the credentials she found in an old coat pocket, confirmed it. $10,000. It felt like a miracle. Sarah cried when she heard. We can finally fix the car, get better food, pay the heating bill. But deep inside Elizabeth, something else stirred. This mirror, it could solve everything. She began testing it. Small questions, then bigger ones. How to get a promotion, what the manager thinks, what the customer will tip. She followed the whispers, obeyed the visions, and it worked, each time. But the mirror's whispers were no longer passive. They started asking her things. Bring it. Let me see. Feed me. One night, after using the mirror to avoid getting caught stealing leftover bread from work, she stared at her reflection. Her eyes looked darker. Hello. Sarah walked in behind her. You look different, Mom. Elizabeth smiled, but it wasn't her usual smile. The mirror was no longer just helping. It was feeding off something, and soon it would want more. Eliza stood in front of the worn-down building that once passed for the town's only bank. It had peeling paint, cloudy windows, and a flickering neon open sign that barely clung to life. Sarah sat quietly beside her in the passenger seat, fiddling with the hem of her sleeve, casting side glances at her mother. You really think it's true? Eliza asked. Her voice sounded flat, uncertain. Sarah nodded. I talked to him, Mom, through the mirror. I know it sounds crazy, but he said there's money. Said he put away years ago when he knew things were going south. Eliza's fingers tightened around the steering wheel. And you think that ghost, or whatever it is, was really your father? Do you have a better explanation? Sarah asked. They entered the bank, and the place smelled like dust and drying. An older man at the counter looked up from a crossword puzzle. Can I help you? Eliza hesitated. I'm here to check a dormant account. It belonged to my husband, Henry Wills. The man typed a few things, raised an eyebrow, and asked for ID and proof of relation. After several tense minutes, he returned with a stunned expression. There's $10,000 in this account. Eliza nearly dropped the pen she was holding. What? The man nodded, untouched for over a decade. As they left, Eliza felt a chill crawl up her spine. Not from fear, but from realization. The mirror was real. Henry had told the truth. The impossible was happening. Back at the cottage, the mirror sat calmly, its surface as innocent as still water. Eliza stared at it, now wondering what else it might reveal. The money gave them breathing room, fresh groceries, a fixed boiler, even new clothes for Sarah. But comfort turned to curiosity, and curiosity grew into obsession. It started when Eliza stared too long into the mirror one evening. The surface shimmered, and she heard a voice. You can know what they think of you. She blinked. Who? Everyone, the mirror whispered. Your neighbors, your boss, even your daughter, against her better judgment. Eliza placed her hand on the glass. The next moment, she stood in a dreamlike version of the bakery. Her manager, Mr. Creel, laughed with a cold. Eliza's too slow. If she weren't a widow, I'd have let her go ages ago. The image shattered. Eliza pulled back, gasping. But now she knew. She began using the mirror every night. To spy, to see things not meant for her. Sarah grew distant, sensing her mother's strange behavior. One night, Sarah confronted her. "You're using it too much." The old woman said not to misuse it. Eliza snapped. "You think I'm doing this for fun?" "We were starving, Sarah. I need to know who I can trust." Sarah's eyes welled with tears. "It's changing you." But Eliza wasn't listening. It wasn't just visions anymore. The mirror's surface began showing things. Figures lurking, faces watching. One night, Eliza asked the mirror, "Can I be safe forever?" The glass rippled. A voice answered, "There is always a price." She saw herself burying something in the woods. Money, a key, a lockbox. The mirror hinted at a way to grow the money, get more. But the instructions were vague and eerie. Eliza followed them. She went to the edge of town, where a homeless man slept under a bridge. She gave him a $20 bill. The next morning, she woke up to a deposit. Her bank account had $20,000. She froze. "What have I done?" Sarah found the mirror glowing red. "Mom, what did you trade?" The mirror no longer showed Henry. Instead, its surface pulsed with shapes that didn't resemble anything human. Eliza tried to put the mirror in the attic, then in the basement, but it always returned to its spot near the fireplace. It had become a part of the house, of them. The mirror sat in their living room now, grand and oddly out of place. Elizabeth had cleaned it until it gleamed, but no matter how much she polished, a cold mist always seemed to hover just behind the glass, as though the world on the other side was exhaling. Sarah wouldn't go near it, not after what she felt the last time she looked at it. One evening, as the wind howled through the old cottage walls, Elizabeth sat alone with a cup of tea. The mirror shimmered faintly, almost vibrating. She swore she saw movement within it, a hand, maybe, or a ripple like a stone tossed in the water. She called Sarah into the room. "Come look at this." "No," Sarah stood firm in the hallway. "It's not right. I don't want to see it." Elizabeth rolled her eyes. "It's just a mirror." But she wasn't sure anymore. The reflection didn't always match reality. Sometimes, it felt like the mirror knew her better than she knew herself. That night, Sarah had a dream. The old lady stood at the end of her bed, not aged and frail, but young and radiant. "It grants, yes," she whispered, "but it also watches." Sarah woke up screaming. Despite the unease, Elizabeth couldn't forget what Sarah had said about the bank. Her late husband had told Sarah something about money, a hidden account, something Elizabeth had never known about. "I'm telling you, Mom," he said, "it was for emergencies. For us. Please just check." Elizabeth was hesitant, but she finally drove into town, her palms sweaty the entire way. The bank teller raised an eyebrow when she handed over her ID and requested account information under her husband's name. To her shock, there it was, an untouched savings account with $10,000. No withdrawals, no activity since it was created. She stared at the balance. "He never told me. Maybe he was saving it for a moment like this," the teller said kindly. When she got home, Elizabeth stared at the mirror. "Was it guiding us?" she asked, half joking. Sarah stood behind her. "Or testing us." They began to talk to the mirror. Not out loud at first, just thoughts. Wishes. Desires. Elizabeth thought about bills, groceries, maybe a little peace. The mirror stayed still. But later that night, a thick envelope was slipped under their door. No, just cash. Elizabeth's mind changed after that. She stopped fearing the mirror. She began to rely on it. She tested its power in small ways. A whispered wish for a sunny day, and the rain stopped. A broken light bulb fixed itself overnight. Even the rust on her car's engine seemed to melt away. But the mirror never gave for free. The more Elizabeth used it, the more she changed. Her face grew gaunt. Her eyes always looked tired, even when she slept through the night. Sarah noticed. "Stop it, Mom," she said one morning, tears brimming in her eyes. "Please, it's not helping anymore." "You don't understand," Elizabeth said, pacing. "This mirror is a gift. The old lady gave it to us for a reason. We just need to be smart about it. It's changing you. I'm doing this for you." The mirror pulsed once that night, and something crawled across the glass. Not a reflection, a shape, watching. Elizabeth didn't sleep. She stared into the mirror and whispered, "Just a little more." And the mirror smiled. The days that followed the mirror's arrival felt different. The cottage, once silent and plain, now hummed with a strange new energy. Elizabeth often caught herself staring into it for longer than she meant. What started as curiosity turned into fascination. She noticed that when she asked the mirror questions, silly ones at first, it sometimes seemed to answer, showing her flickers of images, vague but oddly specific. She never told Sarah. Sarah, meanwhile, had started to sleep better, waking with fewer night terrors. The girl didn't mention her father as often anymore, and Elizabeth assumed it was healing. But the truth was different. Sarah had begun talking to the mirror, whispering to it like it was a secret friend. One rainy night, Elizabeth had a nightmare, one so vivid she woke screaming. The mirror shimmered in the corner, almost pulsing. She approached it hesitantly and whispered, "Can you help me?" The mirror didn't answer with words, but she saw an image, a bang. Her late husband's face, a lockbox. She jolted back. The next morning, she asked Sarah casually, "Did Daddy ever mention anything about money?" Sarah hesitated, then nodded. "He said he saved something for us." Elizabeth dismissed it at first as a child's wishful thinking, but the mirror kept showing her the same image. Compelled, she went to the bank with her husband's old documents, and there it was, an untouched account of $10,000. The relief was overwhelming. She withdrew a portion and fixed the leaky roof, bought proper groceries, and got Sarah a warm coat. Things finally seemed to be getting better, but the mirror's reflection started to shift. Sometimes it showed Elizabeth her own face, distorted and grieved. She tried to ignore it. The days turned to weeks. The money from the account helped ease their burdens, and for once, Elizabeth didn't feel like she was failing as a mother. Sarah laughed more often. The cottage even felt like a home. But Elizabeth wasn't content. That small taste of comfort reawakened something deep in her, a hunger she hadn't felt since before her husband's death. She began to ask the mirror questions again, more directly this time. "What should I do next?" she'd whisper. The mirror responded with glimpses, pictures of her applying for a better job, finding lost jewelry in an old drawer, even winning a raffle she had never. Every time she followed its guidance, it worked. She told herself it was harmless, a gift, a blessing from the strange old woman who gave it. But deep down, she knew it wasn't just good luck. Then, one evening, she asked, "What would make me truly happy?" The mirror showed her a large house, a brand new car, a man, not her husband, smiling beside her. Sarah, grown up and successful. The images were intoxicating. Elizabeth became obsessed. She started playing the lottery, trying new investments. The mirror guided her to minor successes. But one day, she asked for more. "How do I get rich?" The mirror went dark. For the first time, it didn't show anything. Only her own reflection, staring back. Then the glass rippled. She saw her face again, twisted, gaunt, desperate. Startled, she backed away. But the seed had been planted. A month after discovering the bank account, things began to shift. The mirror no longer showed simple visions. Now it offered bargains. "Bring me something of meaning," the surface whispered one night. Elizabeth thought she imagined it. But the next day, Sarah's old doll vanished. Then her wedding ring, one she never took off, was gone. In their place, she found envelopes of money. Small amounts at first, then larger. It became a pattern. Give something personal. Receive something valuable. The mirror was trading, and Elizabeth was playing along. Sarah noticed. "Mom, have you seen my drawing book?" Elizabeth lied, probably packed away. She knew where it had gone. The mirror had taken it. But that same evening, she got a letter. She'd won a cash prize in a local contest she didn't remember entering. Sarah's health began to decline. She grew pale, withdrawn. She stopped talking to the mirror and started sleeping all day. Elizabeth asked the mirror, "What's happening to her?" The mirror didn't answer. Terrified, Elizabeth finally confronted the mirror. "Tell me what you want." The glass darkened. Her reflection faded. And for a moment, she saw the old woman, the one who had given it to her, smiling coldly. "You've already given too much," the voice hissed. Elizabeth fell to her knees. "Please, I didn't mean." The mirror showed her one last image. Sarah, alone, crying. Then silence. Elizabeth realized too late it was never a gift. It was a test, and she had failed. The days that followed Elizabeth's first experience with the mirror were filled with an eerie calm. She tried to forget about the vision she'd seen, but the image haunted her. Her younger self, vibrant and full of hope, staring back at her with wide, empty eyes. The mirror stood silent in her room, veiled beneath a sheet, but its presence seemed to pulse like a second heartbeat in the house. One morning, as Elizabeth was folding laundry, she noticed Sarah standing unusually still in the hallway. The girl was gazing at the room where the mirror was hidden, lips parted slightly, eyes unfocused. "Sarah," Elizabeth asked, alarmed. Sarah blinked and turned slowly, smiling. "I thought I heard something. A whisper, like a song." Elizabeth's spine stiffened. "You heard it too?" That evening, she stood before the mirror again. This time, she didn't veil it. She stared into it for what felt like hours, hoping for something, anything, to appear. And then it did. Not a vision this time, but a whisper, so faint it could have been her imagination. More. She pulled back, terrified. What did it want? What had the old woman given her? Elizabeth tried to speak with Sarah about it, but the girl had already become strangely attached to the mirror. She would sneak into the room just to touch it, just to stare. Elizabeth scolded her, but Sarah only giggled. "It's magic, Mommy," she said. "It wants to help us." Elizabeth could feel it now. The mirror was no longer just an object. It had desires, and those desires were growing. After the unexpected $10,000 from David's hidden bank account gave them a taste of hope, Elizabeth's thoughts began to twist. At first, she was grateful. It was like David had reached out from the grave to save her. But when she looked at the mirror, a terrible thought gnawed at her. Was it the mirror that revealed the money? Was that its first gift? Elizabeth began experimenting. Small things. She'd ask the mirror questions. Sometimes it remained still, quiet. But occasionally, she'd see flashes, short images that hinted at things. She found Sarah's missing bracelet, then a lost wedding earring. Then she had a vision of a discount code for an online store and tested it. And it worked. Sarah cheered every time they found something. Elizabeth told herself it was harmless. But each time she used the mirror, she felt more and more drained afterward, like a fog settling in her chest. One night, Elizabeth asked the mirror where she could find more money. The mirror showed her an image of a woman, a co-worker from the bookstore, stashing cash in a locker. The next day, Elizabeth faked a coffee spill near that very locker, waited until the woman stepped out, and checked inside. The cash was there. She didn't take it, but the temptation clawed at her like a desperate animal. Back home, the mirror pulsed faintly. It was alive now. It was hungry. Sarah, too, was changing. She spoke less and listened more. One night, Elizabeth found her sleepwalking, standing before the mirror, murmuring something. She pulled Sarah away, shaking. "What did you say to it?" Sarah just smiled in her sleep. "It told me a secret." The snow had begun to fall early this year. Life in the cabin grew colder, quieter. Elizabeth started dreaming about the mirror. Vivid, disturbing dreams were called her name. One afternoon, Elizabeth drove into town to pick up groceries, only to find her car declined. The $10,000 had evaporated far faster than she expected. Bills, repairs, Sarah's school expenses. The creeping stress returned. She stood in front of the mirror that night, whispering, "Show me a way out. Please." The glass shimmered. Elizabeth saw an image. A car parked outside a jewelry store, keys left in the ignition. The owner was inside, arguing on the phone. In the back seat, a purse full of cash. Elizabeth gasped and stepped back. No, I can't do that." But the next morning, the image repeated, clearer, longer. She could see the license plate. Something inside her cracked. The desperation, the hunger, the belief that this gift, this cursed gift, had to be used or else it would take something worse. She drove into town again. She saw the car. She walked past it once, twice. On the third pass, she stopped. Her hands trembled as she opened the door and reached for the purse. She didn't take all of it, just a few bills. Enough to pay the heating bill, she told herself. Enough to keep Sarah warm. That night, she sat alone with the mirror. It didn't whisper. It didn't glow. It just reflected her face, tired, ashamed, cracked in half. From the hallway, Sarah whispered, "Thank you, Mommy." Elizabeth froze. For what? Sarah was already walking away. The mirror says we're safe now. For a while. Elizabeth felt the weight of her sins settle over her chest like a stone. She had misused the mirror, and now it had started keeping score. The house was still. No creaks, no wind. Only the distant ticking of a clock echoed from the living room. Elizabeth walked past the mirror hanging on the hallway wall, a narrow, gold-rimmed antique she had once hung without much thought. But lately, she could feel it watching her. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was a certainty. She turned back, slowly. Her reflection blinked, once and not in sync with her. Her breath caught. She inched forward, peering closely into the mirror surface. Her own face stared back, pale and exhausted. But behind her reflection, there was something else, movement, a figure. Maybe it vanished before she could register any detail. "No," she whispered, backing away. "I'm just tired." She turned off the hallway light and walked to her bedroom, heart pounding louder than her footsteps. But the mirror stayed awake. The next morning, Elizabeth told Sarah. "Maybe it's just stress, Mom," Sarah said, trying to sound unconcerned, though her eyes betrayed unease. Do mirrors usually blink? Elizabeth snapped. They both fell silent. They started keeping the hallway light on at all hours. But it didn't help. The mirror was no longer just a fixture. It was a presence. Sometimes they'd walk by and catch their reflection slightly out of step, a millisecond too slow, or standing a fraction taller than they remembered. It was subtle, maddening. At night, Elizabeth began hearing whispers, indistinct, muffled like breath against glass. One evening, she dared to touch the mirror's surface, and it pulsed with heat, like skin. That night, she dreamed of her husband, alive, smiling, and calling her name. When she awoke, the mirror was glowing. Elizabeth grew addicted to the dreams. Each night, she stood before the mirror, hoping to see him. Sometimes she did. Sometimes she didn't. But the nights when he came, they made her weep. He'd speak words she barely remembered, kiss her forehead, tell her things would be okay. "I'm saving you," he said once. "From what?" she asked. But then she woke up. Sarah noticed her mother's growing attachment to the mirror. "You're acting strange," she said over breakfast. "You barely sleep. You stare at that thing for hours." Elizabeth didn't respond. One evening, Sarah stood in front of the mirror herself. She waited. Nothing. She moved left, then right. Still nothing. But when she turned to leave, she heard it. Her own voice, but not her own tone. "Come back." She spun around. The mirror was normal. Her reflection looked frightened, just like she was. She didn't tell her mother. Not yet. That night, Elizabeth asked the mirror to help her again. She whispered, "Show me more." And it did. The reflection shimmered and revealed her husband sitting beside a young Elizabeth on a couch from decades ago. Both laughed. The room filled with the scent of his cologne. She pressed her hand against the glass. Then she saw something else. Sarah, older, weeping in front of a grave. Her heart stopped. "No," she gasped. "That's not real. That's not real." But the mirror dimmed, refusing to rewind. Elizabeth became desperate. Her emotions twisted into obsession. The mirror had answers. It showed what could be, but never what she wanted. Not truly. She tried to manipulate it. "What if I ask you to bring him back?" she whispered, touching the glass. "What if I offer something?" The mirror rippled. She heard her own voice echo, "Offer something." That night, Elizabeth rummaged through the attic. She found old photo albums, locks of hair, a Bible. She offered them all one by one before the mirror. No response. Then she remembered the old woman's words. "Keep it, it will come in handy. But do not misuse it, or else." The temptation burned through her. What was misuse, really, if the goal was love? She placed Sarah's childhood drawing, her favorite one, on the mirror's edge. "Give him back." The mirror cracked slightly, but her husband appeared, full body, smiling. "Elizabeth," he said. She sobbed. Sarah walked in and screamed. "Oh, what the hell?" But Elizabeth didn't hear. She was inside the memory, or maybe the mirror, and the mirror's glow turned red. Sarah stared at it, trembling. Her mother was smiling, but empty-eyed. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, and the mirror pulsed again. It was hungry now. It's been 3 days since Sarah last spoke. Not a word. She doesn't cry anymore. She just stares at the mirror as if waiting for it to blink. Elizabeth's attempts to break through the silence are met with more silence, and the tension in the cottage is thicker than the fog rolling off the hills. Elizabeth tries to hide the fear growing inside her, but it's clawing its way out. The air feels heavier around the mirror, like it breathes when no one's looking. Sarah's reflection no longer matches her expression. Her real face remains blank, but her reflection smiles. "It's just in your head," Elizabeth whispers to herself. She doesn't believe it anymore. She covers the mirror with an old sheet. That night, she hears it whispering, "Come back, come see." When she checks Sarah's bed in the morning, it's empty. The sheet on the mirror is gone, and the glass is warm to the touch. Elizabeth begins to question her sanity. Every time she looks in the mirror, her past replays itself, but not exactly as it happened. She sees her husband's funeral, except this time, he opens his eyes in the casket and mouths something she can't hear. She sees herself holding baby Sarah, but the baby has no face. Terrified, she avoids looking at her own reflection. She covers all the mirrors in the house, but it doesn't help. The reflections appear in windows, in puddles, even in her teacup. She calls the local pastor, but when he arrives, the mirror cracks the moment he sets foot in the living room. "I can't help you," he mutters, backing away. "This isn't human." That night, Elizabeth wakes up to find Sarah sitting at the foot of her bed, eyes wide, speaking in a voice that isn't hers. "You should never have covered it. Now it sees through you." Desperate, Elizabeth returns to the roadside where she first met the old woman, the one who gave them the mirror. The forest looks different now, gnarled and overgrown. Time moves strangely there. After hours of searching, she finds the woman again. She's older now, or maybe she always was. "You misused the gift," the woman says, her eyes dull with grief. "You let greed touch your heart. You looked not to remember, but to escape." "I didn't ask for this," Elizabeth pleads. "All curses start with something asked for, even if you didn't speak it aloud." The woman reaches into her cloak and pulls out a small, jagged shard of mirror glass. "Break the reflection," she whispers, "or it will finish rewriting her." Elizabeth looks down at the shard in her hand. Her face reflects back, but it isn't her face anymore. Elizabeth keeps the shard wrapped in a handkerchief tucked deep in her coat pocket. Ever since touching it, she feels different, like something inside her is vibrating at a frequency only the mirror understands. Her fingers twitch involuntarily. Her dreams bleed into her waking hours. Sarah doesn't speak anymore, but she hums strange lullabies that Elizabeth knows she never taught her. And when Elizabeth listens closely, she hears words buried in the hum. "We remember, we return, we rewrite." Elizabeth tries to speak with her again, pleading, begging, crying. But Sarah's eyes no longer recognize her. The girl tilts her head slowly and murmurs, "You're not Elizabeth anymore. You're almost done." That night, Elizabeth finds slivers of mirror glass on her skin. They shimmer beneath her fingertips like cold stars. Every reflective surface has become an enemy. Elizabeth boards up the windows, covers the bathroom tiles with old newspaper, breaks the TV, but reflections still find her, in doorknobs, polished spoons, even her own eyes in Sarah's gaze. The house moans at night. The walls breathe in and out. Sometimes the mirror itself pulses, as if it has a heartbeat. Elizabeth's vision starts to split. She sees herself in two frames at once, the Elizabeth who's afraid and the Elizabeth who's already given in. She returns to the pastor, begging for guidance. He refuses to even open the door. "That thing, it's older than God," he whispers through the mail slot. "You need to end it before it ends you." Elizabeth returns home and locks herself in the room with the mirror. She draws a circle of salt around it, lights candles, and places the shard on the floor. The reflection in the mirror grins with too many teeth. Elizabeth waits for Sarah to fall asleep. Then she presses the shard to her palm, drawing blood. She steps into the circle and faces the mirror. You want me? Come get me. The surface ripples. Her reflection steps forward, fleshless and ancient. It whispers, you gave me shape. Now, give me life. Elizabeth stabs the shard into the heart of her reflection. A scream explodes across every wall in the house. The candles flicker violently, then die. The mirror cracks, not shatters, just cracks like a bone fracturing. She collapses. When Elizabeth wakes, the mirror is dull. Sarah is curled at her side, asleep but breathing normally. Elizabeth looks at her reflection in the broken glass. It's her, just her, and she's crying. I kneel in the silence of the old room, blood drying on my hands. Sarah's lullaby still echoing from nowhere and everywhere. The mirror, cracked, black vein, pulsing faintly, no longer shows my face. Just the house, just the room, just her. The truth was never in the house. It was always in me, in what I buried, in what I let follow me home. I reach out one last time, fingertips brushing glass. It reaches back, and this time I don't pull away. The house remains standing. People say it's empty, but the lights flicker sometimes. Sometimes a song plays through the vents when no one's there. And sometimes someone sees a girl in the upstairs window, not quite smiling, not quite human. They say she never left, but the truth is simpler. The house doesn't let you go. Not really. It just waits until you forget, then opens the door again. Not all gifts are blessings. What seems like fortune can turn to poison when mixed with greed, pride, or desperation. Sometimes the universe offers us something pure, a chance, a talent, a second life. But the way we use it defines whether it becomes our salvation or our curse. Be grateful, be wise, and never take what isn't freely given. Because once you twist a gift into a weapon, it will remember who held the blade first. Be safe, fellows. We'd love to hear from you. If this story stirred something in you, a memory, a feeling, a lesson, we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever faced a moment where a blessing turned into something else? Or a time when greed clouded judgment? We'd love to hear your experiences, your reflections, and even your theories about what could have happened next. Stay tuned. More mysterious and heartfelt stories are on the way. Until then, share this with someone who might need the reminder. Not all gifts are meant to be kept. Some are meant to be understood. See you in the next one.